How's it going, everyone? Today we're installing MetalCloak's rear differential skid plate on a Jeep JLU. Comes in at about $159. It's 3/16 in steel. It comes in this gold zinc coating. You can install it as is. We decided to spray paint it black beforehand. It's a really simple install. It's 6 bolts, shouldn't take longer than half an hour. Alex originally got this for his Jeep, but wasn't able to install it due to his rear track bar relocation bracket being in the way. So make sure that you don't have anything installed that will get in the way of this install. So we're gonna head over to the table and talk about the tools.
Not very many tools are needed for this install. For us, we're gonna be using a box end wrench, a ratchet, and a torque wrench. For the socket size you need is a 3/4 inch. Same with the box end wrench, 3/4 inch. You do want to make sure you use a torque wrench because according to MetalCloak, if you over tighten this, you can possibly bend your axle tubing or possibly crush your axle housing. It's going to be torqued out to 50 foot-pounds. On this front side right here where it goes over the actual main bearing in the differential, we're only going to do about 30 pounds just because there's a bearing inside that and I don't want to put too much clamping force. Besides that, we'll get ready for this install. So we're going to start by getting this bracket up here. Just place it on the axle. Take these U-bolts, go through the back of the axle. Just get the nuts started, hand tight. So you get all the bolts in the correct position. Just leave everything somewhat hand tight so you can have a little bit of adjustability. So now that's in place. We're going to take the bracket that goes over the input shaft on the front of the differential. So when installing this bracket, this little notch right here is going to go over the axle housing. There's a little rib up here at the top. I'm personally going to mount my bolts downwards just in case the axle flexes. I'm not really too sure if it'll get close to this cross member up here or not. There's really no reason this to really get that messed up. Same thing on the other side. So now we got everything put on. We're going to start running these bolts down by hand. With U-bolts, you want to make sure you have equal torque. So equal threads on both sides. You don't want to pinch the U-bolt too much. Doesn't need to be exactly perfect, but you don't want like 20 threads on this side and like 5 threads on this side. I know it's an exaggeration, but you want the threads on each side to be pretty equal. Only if you had hands you can help me out. Be better than Sean. So I personally want to start with this side, getting this side pretty tight because it's going to pull up against the axle, and then I'll position the front bracket before I tighten that up. You're going to need a deep set 3/4 because how many threads are showing. So you don't want to get on too hard necessarily in the beginning. You want to make sure they're snug and get everything else snug. So that's pretty tight to a certain extent. Not torque set tight, but it's wrench tight. And so with that being tightened up here in the back, I'm not going to torque it yet. I'm going to move to the front and start getting those ones tight. So we're going to move to the front and start getting this tightened up. They have nylock nuts on here. So you're going to need to use a backup wrench up top, which is a 3/4. And then just start working them. You want even pressure, so just make sure you don't get a bunch of threads on one side and none on the other. So I'm going to hop to the other side. You just want to keep working them back and forth just so you have even pressure across the housing. Alright, now that's somewhat snug. I'm going to go back to the U-bolts. You can start working those, make sure they're decently tight and everything looks good. Everything looks even. Got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright. 8 threads on both sides. So I'll move back to the rear. Alright. Everything's tightened up. Do one more look over. Make sure nothing looks weird. Everything looks good. Got the torque wrench set to 50 foot-pounds. We're going to start torquing them out. I'm going to go personally in steps. It's kind of overkill. I'm going to start with, I don't know, 30. Just so we know we have even pressure across that housing. We're not putting too much pressure on one side of the U-joint or the U-bolt. Alright, personally we're going to leave these ones up here on ours to 30 because you do have a bearing inside of here, and so I don't want to crush that too hard. 30 pounds of torque is a lot of torque. Be more than enough to hold that in place. We'll keep an eye on it though. So now we're going to move to the back and get those torqued out to 50. Everything's torqued out, just going through and checking it one more time. So everything's torqued out to 50 foot-pounds on the rear. Couldn't get to this one, so we did a few pulls with the actual combo wrench. Got it not overly tight, but tight enough where I'm comfortable with it. And the front bolts, we only torqued to 30 because we have a bearing inside that housing right in that general area, so I don't want to get on it too hard. So with that being said, everything's torqued out, looks pretty good. As you see, it's a pretty quick install, only 6 bolts. You want to make sure you do use a torque wrench because you don't want to start crushing tubes and cause damage to an axle housing that you're really trying to protect. Again, like for my Jeep with the rear track bar, you're not able to use it because the rear track bar relocation bracket's in the way. You're going to need a deep set socket to be able to get on those bolts because they have a lot of thread sticking out. For the Gladiator, this does also fit the Gladiator, but for MetalCloak they send you an extra spacer kit that goes between your sway bar and the axle, so you have extra clearance there. Besides that, pretty good install. It looks like it's going to be a pretty good piece of equipment. If you're going to paint it and take the time to paint it, we really don't care that much. We just wanted it black, so we didn't really put too much preparation in it. I would hit it with 80 grit just so the sandpaper would get in there and take some of that coating off and have the paint stick a little bit better. But overall, it is a skid plate. Don't put too much time and effort into it. It's going to get scratched up on the trail. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, it means it's doing its job. Thank you very much for watching.
See you.